Welcome to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. It's been a really good weekend actually, on a few fronts for me personally. Man United won the League Cup, first cup in 6 years since 2016. Looks like Eric Ten Hag's doing his thing. Yeah, happy days. Looking forward to many more. I mean, I guess we've got a pseudo quadruple still on the line technically. You know, obviously the Europa League doesn't really count, but I mean, I'll definitely take that. Although I noticed after beating Barcelona, we end up getting Real Betis in the subsequent round, whereas everyone else seems to be getting light touches. So it looks like if we're going to win it, we're going to have to do it the hard way. Anyway, that notwithstanding, let's get to the boxing stuff. Obviously, it's a day later than normal just because we had boxing on a Sunday, which isn't that often for us. But as a weekend, yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, look, PBC on Saturday, Subriel Matìas versus Jeremias Ponce. That was a brilliant fight for all of the 5 rounds it lasted. Action-packed. Both guys basically stood in the phone booth and traded from start to finish, which I did say was going to be Subriel Matias's ultimate game plan. Ponce, I thought, would actually box and move a bit more and use his range and his distance more than he does. I know he's good to the body, but I thought he would employ outside to mid-range movement rather than sitting in on the pocket. And ultimately, I guess he thought that he could maybe overwhelm Subriel just because he doesn't move his head a lot. He doesn't have a huge amount of lateral movement. He tucks up very well behind the guard and is good at absorbing shots and just taking a little bit off of them to keep himself in control. And ultimately, I feel as if Ponce possibly exerted a bit too much energy in that first round. So Subriel just had time just to work him over between rounds 2 to 5. And funny thing, so Subriel Matìas drops Ponce in the 5th round. There's how long left in the round? 6 seconds. This is a guy with 100% KO ratio in every fight that he's won. And Ponce's team decided to allow Ponce to stay in the fight and see out those 6 to 7 seconds. Now, admittedly, the way he was dropped wasn't as heavy as, Lee Wood from last week. Although, that being said, you could clearly see that he had taken a lot more physical damage in those 4 rounds than Wood had taken. But his team still allowed him to remain in there just because it's a title fight. Got to the corner, assessed him in the corner. He still wanted to carry on and continue, but they said, no, this is only going to go one way from here. So we'll call it off and we'll live to fight another day. You're only 26 years old. That's the same thing I said should have happened last week. Let the guy get to the corner, assess him there. If you pull him out from there, no complaints. Anyway, moving forward, Subriel Matìas is now the IBF Super Lightweight Champion of the world. And the question is going to be, who's really going to want to take him on? Outside of the other champions, unless they just want to unify. I mean, he's basically a wrecking ball. No one at one. I mean, Teofimo Lopez will not look his way. Rolly Romero wouldn't look his way. And if he... Oh, actually, you know what? Rolly might be stupid enough to look his way. So, yeah. But you've got Stevie Spark, maybe. Montana Love, Richardson Hitchens. I mean, they might have to all cross the street to go and get that sort of title because there are no 140 belts over at Matchroom and DAZN. So they might have to get themselves into mandatories or at least try and take a voluntary there. But being the fact that Richardson Hitchens has already just left like the PBC and that would he be keen to go back to fight one of their champs? Who knows? But yeah, that's like I said, unless he's going to fight Puello next, or maybe Regis Prograis after a potential Catterall fight, I don't know. He's going to have a bunch of meaningless title defenses until he gets a unification, because no one's going to be lining up to face him. Subriel Matìas is the real deal, and he's a headache. He's a headache waiting to happen for anyone he gets in the ring with. So that was brilliant. Now, moving over to Sunday. So first things first, Ziyad Al Mayouf. He got his second pro victory. I actually thought he would get scored a draw because he was knocked down very heavily in the first round, but he got up, recovered well. And I didn't see all the scorecards, but from the ones I did see, it ended up being 38-37 scorecards, which would suggest that he got given a 10-9 in the round he was dropped, as opposed to a 10-8. Or maybe, yeah, I would assume that had to be the case. And then he won the other 3 rounds pretty clearly after that. Now, there was a few things I did notice about his technique and sort of some of what he was doing, some of which was definitely nerves. And I remember when I spoke to him last week, he did say, look, pressure is real on me, but, you know, it's a pressure that I want because ultimately I need to be a light for the people coming into the game after me. So yeah, with regards to that, I could see he was sort of very nervous, jittery, and was looking for sort of big finishes throughout all 4 rounds. But one thing that he did say in our interview is that he had been working with Buddy McGirt for 3 months while his right hand was healing. He was just literally worked on the jab for 3 months straight, not throwing anything from the right hand, just constantly working the jab. And you could see that he's starting to develop a very, very nice jab. His jab hand, he done on several occasions. He was planting his feet and implementing a triple jab, a side-on triple jab towards his opponent, which worked almost every time he threw it. So every time he went away from the jab is when he would potentially get himself either in trouble or face a slight bit of resistance. But if he had have stayed on the jab, which clearly he's been developing over the last year, he definitely could have made it a much easier night. But I guess the will to want to get the knockout was, sort of the overriding factor. But him being 22 years old, it's a learning curve, and quite frankly, it might be one of the best things that happened that he faced such an adversity so quickly in his game. So now he knows what he's made of. He knows he can get up. He knows he can come through a crisis, and that's just going to make him even better for his for his next fight moving on. So I look forward to seeing when his third professional bout can take place, and hopefully it's not too long. He can keep the momentum going this time and just sort of build a nice little rhythm. Now, to the co-main event, or the chief support, I guess we're gonna have to call it on this one. Alungu Makabu versus Badu Jack. Now, I thought that Makabu would get this one. I mean, there was a lot of signs pointing to Badu Jack potentially getting a victory. I mean, look, Badu Jack is one of, I think, the toughest and sort of the best professionals out there, just in terms of the way he goes about things. He does nothing special at all, but he does everything correct. He's one of those type of guys where you got to be on your P's and Q's to make sure that you get off and get your success. The only issue I had with Badu Jack, which is something that we've seen from his last fight to pretty much the whole back half of his career, he's an incredibly slow starter. He finishes fights incredibly well. He grinds out sort of the first half of the fight and then sort of just normally takes over in the second half. But I felt that coming up, obviously being the much naturally smaller guy, coming from super middle to start off with all the way up to cruiser, not really being, I guess, comfortable in a cruiserweight body, as he's only had one fight at cruiserweight previously, that his penchant for slow starting would allow Alungu Makabu to, catch him with something heavy and ultimately take him out. I did think it would be a competitive 6 rounds, but I thought that he would give up too much ground in the opening half and then sort of, as I said, have something land quite heavy on him. But it was the opposite. He done something he hasn't done in a very, very long time, which is literally boxer move. He employed very much pure boxer tactics in this fight. He even said in the post fight that they wanted me to box and move. That's not really what I like to do, but we did what we needed to do in this one. So, with that being the hindsight, it was, I guess was a hard thing for me to sort of envision was gonna take place. Although, to be fair, him training with Jonathan Banks, I mean, it makes sense. So really and truly, I probably should have expected that. Makabu's feet didn't look good all night. I don't know if he was carrying an injury, if maybe he'd suffered maybe a concussion in sparring, or if the weather change affected him more than maybe we thought. But I mean, considering he's pretty much in the Congo and Africa more time or not out of the year, it couldn't be a thing of weather. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe he just literally got that old overnight. Been out of the ring for about 13 months, so you could say that maybe played a factor as well. He did very well in the fight though. The thing is, a lot of people were acting as if it was a total wash on Badu Jack's part. No, like Maccabi was winning a lot of those rounds from what I saw. He was, his body work was definitely affecting Jack, and every time he was catching Jack to the head with anything stiff outside of his jab, it was having an effect. Obviously, Jack was doing well, being economic and picking his spots, maybe getting off some of the cleaner shots, but Maccabi was definitely working a lot more. And to me, like, I need to go back and watch it because admittedly I was watching via stream. I decided not to purchase. Primarily I wanted to hear the US commentary more than I was looking to hear the BT Sports commentary, and from what I've seen on Twitter, that was the correct choice. But that being said, yeah, I felt as if it was very, very close, despite the first two knockdowns even. Now, that being said, all credit to Badu Jack, because 39 years old, in his third weight class, is now a legit 2-weight world champion, because we don't count the Reggies from 175, unfortunately, so we don't do that. So, yeah, but from super middleweight to cruiserweight champions, gotta respect it. It definitely looks like there could now be a Canelo versus Badu Jack fight, maybe even his September fight. So, it actually lines up perfectly. Because you're not going to have Badu Jack versus Jake Paul. That was never going to happen. But Canelo has expressed interest in fighting Badu Jack previously. Badu Jack's 39-40 coming up pretty soon. What do people say? Canelo likes to fight old men, right? Well, he's going to be fighting John Ryder in May. Supposedly, Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev may be able to get it on in June. So June to September is not a great deal of time. But, I mean, if Canelo wants to keep that September date, if he wants to go back to America, he could potentially fight there on that date, or maybe even push his next fight out to sort of October, November, maybe have a little trip over to the Middle East and face Badu Jack over there. But he said he wanted a chance to win another title at, another weight class. Being that Badu Jack's not a natural cruiserweight, it might make perfect sense. So, we'll see what happens with that. And also, I know that I'm not the only person who said that, so I want to just give a big up to Chris Andre, who also stated that previously. But it makes sense, and it gives Bivol his opportunity to not have an out in terms of the Beterbiev fight. So hopefully all those stars align, and then you can still do the Bivol rematch with Canelo next year. It doesn't have to be this year. And if Bivol ends up being undisputed at that point, then that match is now even bigger. And then you could possibly even do it at 175. And if, Canelo were to beat Badu Jack, you put that cruiserweight title on the line as well. And you have a nice little, all or nothing type scenario. So we'll see. Now, moving to the main event. I predicted, unfortunately, that Tommy Fury would win on points. And my prediction stuck, which I wasn't happy about. As you guys know, I did want Jake Paul to win, but I took my bias out of my opinion when it came to the actual fight itself and just looked at it had to have been the merits of both guys. And I felt that Tommy would sort of just about eke it out. Now, funny enough, in my predictions video, I did say that I feel like he would pretty much get the whole first half of the fight, like the first 4 rounds, and then get enough of the back half to, eke out sort of a points decision. So, or essentially the majority of both, right, out of a 6-rounder. Now, my scorecards that I had for the fight was, I gave Tommy Fury the first round, so that was 9-10 to him. I gave him the second, which was 9-10 to him. Third round I gave to Jake Paul, so that was 10-9 to Jake Paul. Fourth round I gave to Tommy Fury, 9-10 to him. Fifth round, I scored it 9-9 because I actually gave that round to Jake Paul, but he got a point deducted. So as he got a point deducted, it was a 9-9 round. Sixth round, I gave that to Tommy Fury, but Tommy Fury got a point deducted in that round as well. So instead of a 9-10, that again was a 9-9. Tommy Fury, I gave him the 7th, 9-10. And then I gave Jake Paul the 8th round, 10-8. With the knockdown. And even though obviously Tommy did good work in that round throughout, because he didn't hurt Jake or visibly wobble him or just dominate the round after being knocked down. I kept it as a 10-8. Therefore, my scorecard was 75-76 to Tommy Fury. So the 75-74 card that Jake Paul got, I'm not 100% sure how they came to that conclusion. Like, I definitely don't think he won that, but based on my scorecard, well, the 75 was correct. I'm just not sure which rounds they gave him instead of not giving Tommy. That'll be interesting to see. The others, the 76-73, well, essentially, or the 73-76, I guess you call it, for Tommy Fury, you take one round either side, or you take one round off that, and you're basically at the scorecard that I had anyway. So yeah, I've got no issues with that. I scored it 5-3 to Tommy Fury. But the fact that, you know, this guy who we quote unquote is the professional boxer, you know, he implemented and did well off the jab, but he had no real setup for anything outside of the jab. And, you know, for someone that's supposed to make it easy against the quote-unquote YouTuber, they both showed that they're basically very similar levels at this point. I actually do want to see the rematch. And funny enough, in the rematch, I think Jake Paul would win the rematch based on what I saw yesterday. Tommy Fury could definitely do some things better, but if he stays with the same team that he has, then yeah, I don't see it being a great time for him, because again, while he won the fight fairly well, he went life and death with someone with only 4 years of experience. You know, he's the only one that was visibly cut. Apparently he's got a broken nose from it as well. He's the one that got dropped. So all of these things against the guy that's only been doing this for 4 years when you've been doing it for, what, 17, is not a great indictment. And I think Jake would be able to make certain adjustments in the rematch and, you know, sort of take that. But credit where credit's due. I guess we also have to factor in that Tommy Fury is actually the smaller of the two of them, because technically he wants to be campaigning at light heavyweight. Now, he's never made the light heavyweight limit as a pro thus far, but he also doesn't have to, just because, you know, he's at prospect levels. He doesn't have to get down to those weights just yet. But Jake Paul is you know, he's a cruiserweight. He comes in, you know, he weighs around 190, 195 pounds, maybe up to 200 pounds, whereas Tommy is trying to get himself down to 175. So realistically, you'd probably think he normally weighs around sort of 190. So yeah, even though they're similar heights and everything, he is actually the smaller guy. So he did well to, you know, offset those disadvantages as well. But yeah, it was a, you know what, it was a decent enough fight. The ref was a joke. I definitely don't need him in the rematch. He was the same ref that did Jake Paul's last fight with Anderson Silva. I don't know if Jake Paul just likes him, or the commission says that he has to be there because he's safety first, and whereas Jake maybe isn't, you know, a seasoned pro, they don't want him to have too many, you know, risks at this stage in his career. But they need a ref that's going to just allow things to flow. You know, clinches are going to happen. You just sort of let it happen, see if they work out. If not, break them, let them go again. All the stopping and starting, telling people off for things that were non-issues. The points that got taken off for both guys were ridiculous. You know, there was a legit time when Tommy Fury probably could have got a point taken off for intentionally striking Jake Paul to the back of the head towards the end of a round, and the ref just let that one go because the bell went, but then gives a point for Jake Paul for the tiniest of taps in the clinch, or Tommy Fury for grabbing him under his arm the round after. It's almost like, oh, I made a mistake in that round. Let me try and clear it up and negate the point advantage. Yeah, we don't need to see him again. But as an event, I mean, it was cool. You know, I'm liking these Saudi events, to be honest. I definitely would probably like to go out to one at some point if I could. But yeah, overall, it was a good weekend. This weekend, there's not a huge amount going on. I know there's a Mexico card on DAZN. I don't think there's anything on Sky, and I don't think BT have anything. So I'm going to be away for the majority of the weekend anyway, so there's nothing that I'll necessarily be missing. But yeah, overall, can't complain. Let me leave it there because I do have some work to do. I'm doing this during my lunch break. But yeah, we will reconvene. I'll probably have videos ready to drop on Wednesday. Look out for Monday Night Smoke tonight on the Undefeated Podcast channel. And definitely look out for the breakdown on Tuesday, where I will be getting into more detail over these 3 fights in particular. And there may just be another special guest on there. But we'll wait and see. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. That's the weekend wrapped up, and I'll catch you on the next one.